Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 16 of the Chosen One Star Wars podcast here on Game Domain. As always, I am your host, Jason, joined by my co-host, Captain.
Hello.
All right, so we are bringing you guys another personalized video. The other podcasts like this, we ranked all the Star Wars movies for you guys, and we also gave you guys our personal top 5 favorite Star Wars characters. And in this episode, we are going into another personalized list that me and Captain are each going to be bringing you guys our personal top 5 favorite. This isn't a ranking of what we think are the best. It's just what is our personal favorite 5 lightsaber fights in the entire Star Wars saga. We're also including, we're including games, TV shows. It doesn't have to be canon. Obviously, if it's not canon, we'll talk about that. Yeah. But this is just anything that constitutes as a Star Wars lightsaber fight, and was obviously at some point canon, because whether it's a video game, it'll either be Legends, or if it's one of the newer video games, it'll be canon. And same thing with the TV shows, the canon TV shows, and then some Legends stuff. Right, so yeah, we're just gonna get right into it. First, we're gonna start off with Captain. I don't know. Do you have any just missed ones that you want to talk about first? Because I know I have a few.
Ooh, there's probably a couple just missed ones. Like I missed out the second fight between Vader and Luke on the Death Star. I missed that one out.
Okay. You mean the one in episode 6?
The one in episode 6 where they're in front of the Emperor and he's like, live your hate.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. Any other ones that missed out? Some of them from the... I missed out all of the shitty 7, 8, 9. Missed out all of them. Yeah.
Wait, what are you talking about? What do you mean 7, 8, 9?
Yeah, I know. Is there any other major ones that I missed out? I missed out episode 4's lightsaber duel between Vader and Obi-Wan because it's slow and clunky, and it makes sense. I can understand why it's slow and clunky, but it was the fact that it's not really a fight.
It's more of a
stalling. So I'm just like, it's not. Really
it's a mental game, really, but yeah.
No, yeah, and then I skip over like a bunch of the cutscene stuff from Force Unleashed and all those. So I do miss out quite a few because we're encapsulating such a wide range. I miss out quite a bit, but some of the major ones I miss out as well.
Yeah. All right, so I have 3 that I categorized into the just missed category. All 3 of these were kind of competing for that last number 5 spot. Eventually I chose to go with my the number 5 that I have chosen, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But so for one of my just missed is Kylo and Rey in episode 9. Like we said, I mean the sequel trilogy lightsaber battles aren't that great, but there's something about the scenery, and even though it seemed like we were promised Duel of Fates based on the trailer, but it would have been a lot much better. But I did
like the in that fight, sorry to interrupt. In that fight,
that's fine.
Like the cinematography where
100%. Yeah.
That was the only good
The specific lightsaber fight, meaning lightsabers clashing isn't necessarily the best choreographed or anything, but I just think that the optics and everything around it, obviously the impact of it being the final movie in the Skywalker saga until we get a reboot in 20 years, but the quote-unquote final episode of the Skywalker saga, just with everything surrounding that's kind of that final lightsaber fight. I think the optics and everything, and and then the vision of Kylo. Kylo beats. Yeah, everybody says all they want. I kind of agree with this, and I'm sure Captain you do too. That Rey is really Mary Sue. She's so powerful. She can do anything. But Kylo beat her in this fight. People don't really remember that. Kylo beat her in this fight. Had her he could have killed her, and then he heard Leia speaking to him through the Force as she left the Netherworld, and so then she and then that's what kind of stops him. But otherwise he would have beat Rey and maybe killed her there. But so yeah, I have that fight that just missed out.
In that lightsaber fight, Rey kills Leia. Don't forget that. Nobody forget that. Stupid, slack-jawed motherfucker over there who was like, I'm going to stab Rey because I'm going to take Ben. Not Rey. Not Kylo. Yeah, no, she stabs Ben, thus killing Leia.
Yeah, nice job.
Main character is a douche.
And then, okay, this one, actually, no, I'll say the one that's most controversial, might just miss to the last. But then I have Ahsoka versus Maul. Ahsoka versus Maul in the Clone Wars that we got in season 7. I was very, very close to putting this in my number 5, but it's amazing. I love the choreography because they got live action, like computer live action. I can't think of the word, but motion capture with Ray Park. Yeah, with Ray Park to actually do the stuff for Darth Maul. It made it that much better. The impact of just being in that being in that like Mandalorian temple room, just everything around them just crumbling to the ground, and the significance, and then of Ahsoka basically like playing a mind game and besting Maul into getting captured. I think I just think it was a very well done fight. Just missed out on being my list. And then this is the most controversial one. I have Luke and Vader in episode 5. Yes, the I am your father.
The first Luke and,
Yeah, first Luke and Vader in episode 5. That's the last one that I have missing out. Up until 5 minutes before we started recording, I had it number 5, but my feeling was that that's such a cliche fight. It's an amazing fight, and I would understand why anybody would put it on their list. But I figured that my number 5 choice, which may be a little bit controversial and out there, I would have rather put that on the list than put something that 90% of Star Wars fans have on the list. So I went with the more unique choice, and we'll get to that in my number 5 in a little bit here. But all right, so when we did top 5 Star Wars characters, I went first. So Captain, now it is your turn to go first. So what is your number 5 lightsaber battle?
Oh, people might be pissed off with mine because my number 5 is Episode 3, Anakin versus Obi-Wan.
Okay, all right. Very good fight, but you have it a little lower than most.
Yeah, it's only at that slot pretty much because it's a really long, drawn out fight. Yeah. It's really good. The choreography is great. And, like, I don't mind Hayden Christensen as Anakin, okay?
Yeah, don't either.
He was supposed to be playing a weird, whiny bitch.
Yep.
And it was really good because in the movie he comes across as a whiny bitch.
Yeah.
So, perfect. But it was just great to see like these two brothers. It was like Cain and Abel. These two brothers just beating the crap out of each other with the lightsabers and the power and the Force. It was like the first time we properly see Force.
Yeah, using a
I like it, but it's the fact that it's like a good 20-30 minute long fight that. If it was one continuous fight and we didn't cut away
to Palpatine and Yoda. Yeah.
And to be honest, the Palpatine and Yoda fight is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And that one that I missed out.
I didn't have that on my list.
Pretty much down to the fact that the way it was shot was great. The length was a little bit overly long, but I can understand why it's long. And it's the fact that the way they cut it up to like get it in.
Yeah, to integrate it. Yeah, with everything else.
But it's a great lightsaber fight.
100%. Yeah.
Well, that's my 5th.
All right. My 5th, Captain. I think you're actually gonna love this choice. Most of you audience members, you guys might not even know what this is, whatever. My number 5 is Anakin versus Asajj Ventress in the original The Clone Wars TV series that came out in like 2002, 2004. It's that.
The one done by Samurai Jack.
Yeah. That I wanted to put in my number 5 choice because, like I said, I had Luke versus Vader there in episode 5, but I just figured I want to give some credit to this fight. Done in the 2D animation style, and it's to be done back then, in the early 2000s in this like 2D animation style in the form of a TV show, and to have just such an epic fight with really no like dialogue, just pure emotion between Anakin and between Ventress, and we see that's how Anakin gets that scar on his face, and then and then just there's something about the optics of it, just kind of the intricacies of them fighting in a 2D animation. It looked like much better in live action or even in like the newer Clone Wars animation. But just the fact that they managed to make it look that good and that much of an impact back then, when they didn't really have all the technology, none of the technology really that we have now to be able to put that into 3D animation. And I just think the fight in general between them, because we see in the newer The Clone Wars series, starting in 2008, Anakin and Ventress, they have some sort of a past, but you don't really know it. It's kind of an unwritten, like how they know each other. But back then, when that series was started, that was before Disney bought Lucasfilm. So this original Clone Wars series took place directly after Episode 2, when Anakin was still, technically a Padawan. That was still canon. So this this first meeting was really, this is how Anakin and Ventress know of each other. And Anakin, of course, it ends with him like force pushing Ventress, knocking her off the ledge, and her just like falling down. And obviously we know she ends up surviving because she's in the later iteration of the Clone Wars.
Of course, it was also the introduction of Ventress.
Yeah, because we've never.
One-time person.
Yeah.
So.
And but yeah, so I would just it's a little bit of an out there choice, but I just wanted to get it on here to give it some credit. I always remember watching those. I have Volume 1, Volume 2 when I was a kid. Always remember watching those and absolutely loving this lightsaber fight. And I just think it doesn't really get talked about as much, during the rain, like, the rain, like hitting their lightsabers and the steam coming up. It looks very good. It still holds up to today in 2D animation style. And there's just something about it that I always really liked. So yeah, that is my number 5 choice. And all right, Captain. So now it's your turn to give your number 4 lightsaber battle in all Star Wars.
No, technically, my number 4 is a bunch of battles because it is every single cinematic from the Old Republic. So you haven't played the Old Republic's the online MMO where you can choose between like playing as the good guys or the bad guys. Or you can be like a Republic trooper, Jedi, or 2 different types of Jedis, I think, or like a scoundrel, all that kind of stuff. Or on the other side, you play as Sith and all that kind of stuff. It's great, but the way that they did and I highly recommend you go and watch the cinematic because it's great because it's set. Kind of like when the Sith Empire came back in like way back when, because it's the Old Republic. And funnily enough, I'm actually not to like say that I'm not paying attention, but I'm currently watching them at the same time. They're that awesome. But it's like it's kind of Jedi back before they became back before all the fighting styles were defined. So there's quite a lot of flips. There's a crap ton of force powers used in battle for the fact that in the game our version of Yoda is a woman who defeats the Sith by Hadoukening a massive force blast at him and pinning him to the side of a mountain and like basically defeating him that way because she doesn't have a lightsaber. It's great. I love it. But they're really well done. They're all mocapped. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they actually did get Darth Maul's. I can never remember his name.
Ray Park. Yeah, Ray Park.
I always get him mixed up with Sam Witwer.
Yeah, because Sam Witwer does the voice. The
voice, yeah. But I'm pretty sure they got him in at some point to do some stuff for the mocapping. But it's tons of these beautiful choreographed lightsaber fights that are, to be honest, more accurate than anything we've seen apart from like the original lightsaber fights and the prequel stuff. They're just so beautiful, and it's like pinnacle of cinematic technology that goes into these things. It's just it's like watching a StarCraft like cinematic. They're just so beautiful, man. And you can actually find them all on YouTube. They've all been put together in one. It's like 15 minutes long. It's really good. I really suggest watching them. They're just that great. And I also highly recommend playing the game because the game's awesome as well. And God, I've got a really fun story from playing that game that is just absolutely hilarious. But we're doing lightsaber battles, so
save that for another time if we ever talk about that game.
They're really good. They're all emotional fights. Like you get to see a fight in the Jedi Temple between all the Jedi in the Jedi Temple and a bunch of Sith who crashed into the Jedi Temple to like take out the Jedi. It's great. I love it. Well, that's my number 4. All these cinematic cutscene kind of style intros for Star Wars: The Old Republic.
All right, so backing up my kind of unique and odd number 5 choice is my number 4 choice. I talked about that. Luke and Vader's fight at the end of Episode 5 did not make my list, but the Dagobah vision, which I don't know how many people would consider this a lightsaber battle, but in the definition of a lightsaber battle in Star Wars, if 2 lightsabers clash and touch each other, technically that can be defined as a lightsaber battle. So I have chosen the Luke and Vader, encounter through the Force. Yeah, Luke encountering, a vision of Vader through the Force in Episode 5 as my number 4 choice. Now, most of you don't even view it as a lightsaber battle, I'm sure. So why do I have? Like it. Yeah, why do I have it here? Is because that whole sequence on Dagobah in Episode 5 is just one of the greatest movie sequences, one of the greatest location sets, and just dialogue back and forth between Luke and Yoda as he's teaching him. It's all of movie history, and that's just objective. Even people who haven't seen Star Wars, you have to view Empire Strikes Back as one of the greatest movies of all time. It's a fact, basically. And that sequence, that whole sequence on Dagobah, it adds to that so much. And Yoda showing Luke the ways of the Force, and just the impactfulness of this scene, and then the obvious foreshadowing to something that we, at the time, if you're sitting in the audience back in 1980 watching Episode 5, yeah, you wouldn't have realized, you wouldn't have said, oh my gosh, Vader's Luke's father because his head's in the thing, and you wouldn't have really realized that foreshadowing. But knowing what we know now, there's multiple foreshadowing links you can do to that. But first off, the lightsaber battle itself, why do I have it here? I just think that it's unique and interesting how the reason why he encounters Vader is because he's afraid. That's why he encounters Vader through this vision in the cave. Because Yoda says, strong with the dark side of the Force, that cave is. And when Luke starts walking towards it, because he feels the dark side, he feels that cave calling towards him, and Yoda's just letting it happen because he wants him to learn a lesson. And Yoda says, and Luke asks, or Luke puts his weapon belt on, and then Yoda says, your weapons, you need them, you will not. And then Luke still takes his weapons, just completely not listening to Yoda, which I love the little, I don't know if you've ever seen the Robot Chicken clip, where Yoda says that, and then Luke still walks in, and then he's like, stutter did I? And then he goes in and sees like the guy's head cut off, and he's like to make you think he's like he was an innocent man or whatever. But back to the actual stuff from Episode 5. I just he tells him only what you take with you, so he takes his weapons with him, which means that he's afraid of getting attacked. He's afraid of something bad happening to him when he goes in there. He's not just going to go and connect to it strictly with the Force. He takes his weapons in there, as a self-defense mechanism. And what does that Force powerful cave present to him? A vision of his biggest fear, which is Darth Vader, knowing that he has to confront him at some point. And Luke wants to avenge his father, thinking that Darth Vader is the one who killed his father, and thinking that if he takes down Darth Vader, he will, that will help rebellion's cause and destroy the Empire. So he has this fear of Darth Vader, and Yoda tells him throughout this entire thing he can't rush his training because there's too much fear in Luke, and he says, I'm not afraid, and that powerful line where Yoda's like, oh, you will be, because Yoda knows this, and Luke doesn't really realize this about how much fear he has of Vader. And then he sees this vision of Vader, and the couple slow motion lightsaber hits that they have in that beautifully shot scene with the dim lighting, and you just barely really see the silhouettes of Luke's face and Vader's Vader's mask, and then obviously you hear the breathing, and then when Luke just chops his head off, and Luke at that moment is like thinking for some weird reason Vader's actually on Dagobah, and then his mask, when it's laying on the ground, decapitated, the front mask part just explodes, and in there Luke. Now that foreshadow, the reason why I love this scene so much and why I can have it on here considering it a lightsaber battle is because of how much it foreshadows for the rest of the trilogy. Yep. First off, it foreshadows that Vader is Luke's father. But at the time, sitting in the theater, nobody would have ever guessed that unless you saw the end of the movie first. Now, looking back on it, we realize that was a foreshadowing for that. But if you're sitting in the theater in 1980 and you see that, how I view that as a foreshadowing, even more so than obviously we know that Luke is Vader's son, is that by having the fear of Vader that he has, and striking Vader down with his anger by just straight up decapitating him, he is becoming Darth Vader in a way, because he is falling to the dark side by using his anger, using his hatred in order to get revenge. Revenge is not the way of the Jedi. The original title of Episode 6 was Revenge of the Jedi, and George Lucas realized, they printed a few posters of it, and George Lucas said, that doesn't make sense because Jedis wouldn't want revenge. That's not the Jedi way. So they changed it to Return of the Jedi. Exactly. But so, I just think that this vision and technically the lightsaber battle, in my opinion, is just so powerful and such a one of the best. One of my personal favorite scenes in all of cinema. And I think just from any filmmaker, any writer, any movie, big movie fan standpoint, viewing this scene and everything surrounding it, and the whole Dagobah sequence and the foreshadowing that it implements, it's just one of the most powerful and well done scenes I believe probably in all of movie history, and certainly in the Star Wars saga. And so I just thought that it deserved to be here. And even though they may not view it as a lightsaber fight, it is somewhat of a small little lightsaber fight. Yeah, it's still. I mean, people view the Rebels lightsaber fight between Maul and Obi-Wan. The three lightsaber clashes, and then Obi-Wan, just completely kills Maul. If you view that as a lightsaber fight, I'm sorry, but then this has to be a lightsaber fight because it's the same thing, really, really short, and how it ends. But yeah, so that's my number 4. And yeah, there's really nothing else I can say besides I just love everything surrounding that little lightsaber fight, and I think it deserves to be on my list. And like we've said, this isn't saying this isn't us ranking what we think the best lightsaber fights are. This is just us giving you guys our personal list of our favorites. So that is my 4th favorite lightsaber battle in the entire saga. All right, so Captain, now it's your turn to give your number 3 choice.
Well, funnily enough, my number 3 is Obi-Wan versus Maul.
Wait, in Rebels?
In Rebels.
Okay, I didn't expect that. All right.
I was looking over them, and I was like, right, technically, I don't really have, apart from my number 1, I don't really have any really emotional kind of fights.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, what's a really good, like, it shows character development. It's got weight behind it and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's certainly one of them.
And it was either that one or it was Ahsoka versus Darth Vader. But the reason I went for the Obi-Wan versus Maul instead of Ahsoka versus Vader is because in the one between Vader and Ahsoka, we don't know who was going to win.
Yeah, we don't really know the outcome of that.
Involved and pulls it into the future. So I was kind of like, it was good. I mean, it was still a great fight. Was the Ahsoka versus Darth Vader, but
yeah.
Whole progression of Obi-Wan, realizing past mistakes, seeing that he's no longer who he was, realizing that he can't just get into a fight with Maul. He has to make sure that nobody turns up on Tatooine and gets Luke, and he's got a mission and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He needs to put all of his past kind of anger and hate behind him and just be like, right, okay, Maul's here, and I've got to deal with him, or I'm just going to defeat him and tell him to go away. And the fact as well that he goes through the different stances of his, he goes through Qui-Gon, he goes through his, and then he goes back to his episode 4, and I was like,
yeah, the different stances montage is longer than the lightsaber fight itself.
Yes, it is, and to be honest as well, the 3 lightsaber hit just shows how much Maul got stuck in his past of wanting to find Kenobi and defeat him, whereas Obi-Wan just moved on and realized there was other stuff that needed to be doing, and Luke's now the mission, to protect him. Comes back to peace and stuff. So I was like, it's pretty fucking. There's so many layers to that fight.
Yeah, and even Maul coming around to noticing that, and he's saying he is the chosen one. He will avenge us because Maul was betrayed by Palpatine just as everybody was. If you really think about it, yeah, Maul killed a lot of people. He wanted to get he killed Obi-Wan's master, but even for Obi-Wan to have that kind of sympathy, just letting him die in peace in his arms. And just letting him just die in his arms like that. It's very, very powerful.
It was it definitely had more weight behind it than the Ahsoka versus Vader one, because that was just Ahsoka stalling and letting her get out of it. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, that's my 3rd one right there.
Yeah. All right. So my 3rd one is one that you had, I think, at 5. Anakin versus Obi-Wan in Episode 3.
Yeah.
I grew up in the prequel era, and Episode 3. When I was younger, I used to just watch that movie on repeat. It used to be my favorite movie. And Anakin was always my favorite character, but other than R2-D2, my favorite live character. And so that lightsaber fight, just watching somebody who I viewed as a hero when I was little, just turning to the dark side, but not really understanding, the whole aspect of, what was happening. I just viewed it as so amazing and incredible how that lightsaber fight looked so good. The CGI surrounding them, the fact that they're literally fighting just basically in, being surrounded by a green screen. The CGI doesn't hold up that well today, but it holds up a lot better than it would have in Episode 2 or 1, that's for sure. But
it does hold.
Yeah, the lava.
The only time I have a problem with it is when Obi-Wan and Anakin are stood on the platform. It's like, I have failed you, Anakin. It looks a bit. Even Christian's hair looks a bit janky because of the blue screen that they're on.
Yeah, my least favorite part, CGI wise, of that whole sequence was when they hop on those little droid things when they're floating on the lot. When the big.
Stood on
Yeah.
stuff while filming it.
Yeah, they were, and then when that big like pillar thing was falling down into the lava, and then Obi-Wan jumps off, and then Anakin like sprints to the end, and then he jumps off, and they land on they land on the little platform things.
was weird.
Yeah, that just didn't really look good. But I mean, I just think the one of the main reasons why I love this fight so much is that anybody has to appreciate Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor have said that for literally months straight they spent like 8 hours at least a day, like for months on end, doing training for lightsaber fights, like to do that fight. So it's so much built for such a long and impactful fight, and just to see really how perfect they pulled that off. Some people say, oh, that's not really realistic in the realm of Star Wars things to have it that choreographed. But you have two of the most skilled and powerful Jedi in the entire Star Wars saga. First off, Anakin is just filled with pure rage and hatred towards Obi-Wan, and he is just completely on the offensive the whole fight. Obi-Wan, all he's doing is defending himself that entire fight. He's never really on the offensive until the end when Anakin jumps at him, which he's still really on the defensive, but he just has to, he just has to he has to take care of Anakin. But the entire fight, he's just on the defense, and it's just because he is still so shocked and he can't really come to grips with this idea that this little boy that that he trained, that his master told him he must train, that been his brother for how old is like 12, 13 years, him training him, he's his apprentice, they've been like brothers, and he's watched this little kid grow up as a Padawan, and then now as a Jedi Knight, and then now he is turned to the dark side, and he's become like the very thing he swore to destroy, just like that line that Obi-Wan says. And I also think, as much as dialogue can be cringy and as many memes it's made into, I just think it's so emotional and powerful, like the dialogue and obviously the fight itself between Obi-Wan and Anakin throughout the whole entire thing. I just like the back and forth. There's like, you were my brother Anakin. I loved you. When Anakin's laying there in the fire, and then you were sent to destroy the Sith. You were the chosen one. You're sent to destroy the Sith, not join them. And it's just, and then even in like the beginning when he just chokes Padme, and just that back and forth dialogue, and just the fight itself. I mean, I just think the fight itself, the optics, the impact of everything surrounding it. Watching the end of this movie, we know that somehow Anakin is going to become Darth Vader, going in that suit, and it's just a battle of master and apprentice, and it's just something that I'm very glad that the prequels were able to kind of reinvent lightsaber battling and make them choreographed, because I think in the original trilogy, I mean, each lightsaber battle in the original trilogy, 4 was very clunky. The Vader and Luke stuff in Episode 5 was great, and then in 6, I think it was even, the choreography was even better. But I just love how the prequels were able to super choreograph these things and make the lightsaber battles just that much more awesome. And I think that this Anakin vs. Obi-Wan's a prime example of that.
Yeah, when you kind of look at the sword fights between the originals and the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at it, it's like when Luke's doing his training, he's basically just learning from a bunch of old blocks.
Yeah.
So it's more fencing, it's more kind of that kind of style.
Yeah.
And then when you get to Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, all that kind of stuff, and like Episode 1, 2, and 3. There's probably like the Jedi archives haven't been, wrecked. The forms are known, all this kind of stuff's like solidified. So
yeah,
obviously it's going to be more aggressive. It's going to be, more action packed. But Luke literally learns how to fight a lightsaber from some old guys.
Yeah.
Can't do flips. Can't do one hand stands and all. They can't do any of this stuff anymore. All they're really good at is they're strong with the Force because they're older and more wise, and they can like rely on old man fencing style. That's about it. So I have no problem with the fact that in Episode 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon like force run away, and it's like, why aren't they using that in battle to defeat Darth Maul? I'm like, well, you've got to focus on the fight. Aren't you? If you just ran around willy-nilly at the speed of light, you'd just kill yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So Anakin versus Obi-Wan. That's my number 3. All right, so now we're getting into the top 2. So, Captain, what is the lightsaber fight that just missed out on being your number 1 choice?
That just missed out on being my number 1 choice, of course, is Duel of the Fates. It's the Episode 1 fight.
Yeah.
Pretty much because I love the fact that the Episode 1 fight is done on blue screen and has matte paintings in it. And if you don't know what a matte painting is, it's pretty much every background that existed in a movie from the 70s up to the early 90s.
Yeah, I like.
So, like Bloody Runner, the
I
big city in the background when the cars are flying. That's
yeah.
that's a painting.
I like the CGI and the optics of this fight of that fight. I think they did a very good job of that.
It's the fact that we got before, like episode 2 was pretty much just blue screen stuff.
Yeah, that was and with Yoda flipping around.
Yeah, oh god, but it was like I rewatched all. I did a U. I went back and watched some of the Star Wars recently, and I was watching it, and I was like, that's a matte paint, and you know, analyzing the fight like you do for some stupid reason. I was like, that's a matte painting, that's CGI, that's a matte painting. And then there was a funny bit. There's a bit just where like Darth Maul kicks Obi-Wan off, and he's like Obi-Wan's hanging. And if you pause it on the frame where Qui-Gon is now fighting on the upper level, and Obi-Wan's hanging on the lower level, Obi-Wan's bigger than Darth Maul and Anakin because of the way they composite onto the shot, and I'm like, that's funny. I was like, you could find little bits in it, but it's also the fact that it's the first time seeing a Grey Jedi, so Qui-Gon's a Grey Jedi, which is great. The kind of people like the Force says, you know, you can love stuff, but you know, you can love, you can hate, you can do all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, you've got to keep you cool. Basically, the hippies of the Force.
Yeah, and he looks like one with the hair too. So.
I love Qui-Gon.
I know, he's amazing.
I actually want to get a bottle of Qui-Gon gin, legitimate gin that you can get. But yeah, no, it's like it was the last real fight of the old school, but also introduced the new school stuff.
It was a perfect blend of between no choreography and a lot of choreography. Yeah.
Ewan McGregor's Padawan, with like 20-odd-year-old Padawan, which makes me giggle.
Yeah.
He's the new school. He's doing the flips. He's doing the kicks. He's doing all this kind of stuff. Qui-Gon's the old school.
Yeah, very.
Like Luke and Vader. He's kind of like old fencing and stuff, but he's like Anakin's fighting style in Episode 3, because Anakin's fighting style in Episode 3 is power swings. So it's all this kind of, it's blocking for a bit, and then if you can get a power swing in, you go for a power swing. That's what Qui-Gon does. And I a little bit, because Qui-Gon's this like old school kind of dude who's like, you know, I've got to beat this guy, or I've got to tire him out. So let's get these big power swings in. It was like nice to see these really good fight styles and stuff. I was like, this fight, and watching it as a kid as well. I was like, because I was born in '94. That came out in what, 2001?
Yeah, 1999.
Oh, it came out in 1999. I actually think I went to the cinema to see that, but I also had it on VHS. You know, watching it back and all that kind of stuff was awesome. But as a kid, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And especially, what I've only just like recently come to realize is Darth Maul points his finger to use the Force. Like when they're walking back into that, like those red shields. Yeah, he points it and throws it. I'm like, that just shows how much like Darth Maul is too busy trying to like, I've got to kill these Jedi. It's like, you over there now, open this door so I can stop beating the crap out of these Jedi. Instead of like Episode 3 where it's full palm kind of Force stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's just the fight was well choreographed. It was a nice mix of new school that obviously they wanted to bring in because it's it's not the height of the Jedi, but you know, we've got a lot of Jedi, so we've got all the forms, and a bit of the old school as well with the whole old man kind of fighting style from Qui-Gon.
Yeah,
and it was really as well because like I love cinematography stuff, so it was like the mixture of old school technology and new school technology, because this was like CG was still kind of a new kind of technology, so I was like, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I've watched the behind the scenes, the dedication they put into learning those fighting styles. Let's just say it's like 800 times better than anything Daisy Ridley put into choreograph for that fight. Seriously. But yeah, it's an absolute great. The soundtrack's killer as well. But yeah,
obviously Duel of Fates.
It is probably. It's not my number one, but like it's like a point away from my number one. It's just great.
All right, so my number 2 is the same exact one. For the sake of the fighting itself and the choreography, and obviously Duel of Fates, you know, in my opinion, maybe not over Imperial March, Asteroid Field, or something like that, but definitely top 5 Star Wars, you know, song by John Williams, you know, in the whole entire series. You basically covered everything on the physical and the choreography aspects of the fight. I don't really have anything else to say about that. What I do want to speak to is kind of like just everything that's surrounding that fight, and Dave Filoni said this recently. If anybody's watched that on Disney Plus, the gallery, into the Mandalorian stuff that they're doing, and it's kind of been circulating, like the quote from Dave Filoni has been circulating itself around the internet of how he describes Duel of the Fates. And what I just find funny about when you watch it on the Inside the Mandalorian, like they're calling it Disney Gallery or whatever, when they have the round table of all like the directors, and Dave Filoni's really the only one who like actually knows like a decent amount about Star Wars. And when he's explaining the whole meaning behind Duel of Fates, none of the other Mandalorian directors, because they don't really know that much about Star Wars, to be completely honest, they really had no clue what he was talking about. And it's incredible to see him go off on like this crazy tangent, watch all of their reactions, like me having us like Star Wars fans knowing what's happening, but there's other directors not really picking it up, not really even understanding what the Duel of the Fates is. But Dave Filoni says that like it's so fitting that like it is, that lightsaber fight is the Duel of the Fates, because it means so much, because Qui-Gon is fighting basically for this boy to protect Anakin in a way, because if he's fighting for his life against the Sith Lord, wants to take down this Sith Lord and discover the hidden identity of the Sith and whatnot. But if he survives, he's going to train this boy, and so that's why this fight has so much meaning, and that his death has so much meaning at the end, because it was his destiny. He saw that he saw Anakin to be the chosen one, and he was going to take him on once, because Obi-Wan was ready to go through the trials and become a Jedi Knight. So he wanted to take Anakin on as his Padawan, and he wanted to train Anakin because he believed in him so much. And when Qui-Gon dies, it's just that so impactful, because first off, we knew that there was no possible way that Qui-Gon could train Anakin, because from what we got in the original trilogy, we know that it was Obi-Wan who was Anakin's master. Yeah. So we knew that had to happen. Didn't necessarily have to kill Qui-Gon in the first movie, but by how they chose the overarching storyline between the three movies, and that Anakin was discovered right away in Episode 1, and he was discovered by Qui-Gon as the chosen one, they had to kind of kill him off, because you can't really have him be training him and then Obi-Wan training. It just wouldn't make that much sense, because we didn't know who Qui-Gon was in the original trilogy. But just the impact of his death and everything surrounding that, and that his dying wish that Obi-Wan must train Anakin, and so he's bestowing upon Obi-Wan this massive task of training this boy who's apparently so powerful in the Force that they're deeming him to be in the prophecy the chosen one who can bring balance to the Force, which eventually of course he does. And so I mean, basically everything that you said, I completely agree. That's why I have it a number 2 choice, and just all of those optics of and Dave Filoni said it best. You can look up the video or look up his quotes of him just kind of talking about and describing the true meaning and impact behind this fight, and how much, and basically sets course for the rest of the entire Star Wars saga. And it really is the Duel of the Fates. It's the duel over the fate of this boy, of the chosen one in the Force, of Anakin, and it's just like you said, a very well done fight. The music is amazing. The choreography is amazing. Darth Maul, Ray Park as Darth Maul is just absolutely incredible. And then Obi-Wan, obviously, quote unquote, killing Darth Maul there at the end, and then having Qui-Gon die in his arms. It's just very, very good fight. And all right, so Captain, what is your number 1 Star Wars lightsaber battle?
It is Vader and Luke number 1. Episode 5.
All right.
Just because it's sheer beauty in this. It's like, it's Luke at a point where he's still angry. He's not a full Jedi yet. He's like, I'm gonna save my mates.
It's the mix between farm boy and Jedi. That's what I love about Episode 5, Luke. It's the perfect mix.
He's not focused, so he's not Episode 6 Luke.
Not at all.
Only fights with anger right at the end, like when I'll get your sister. He's not like that. He's still kind of in this point where he doesn't know if striking out. Well, in fact, he doesn't know that striking out in anger could turn him to the dark side. Don't know any of that. Yeah. Yoda's not been like, feel he's dying, angry, the hate, he's suffering, blah blah blah. Not done any of that stuff.
Yeah.
He's just been like, if you go, your training's not complete, you might die. That's all. Yeah. That's all that Yoda gives him.
And your friends still might die anyway, even if you got
and he's trying to get that point across, but Luke doesn't know. He's just had this fight fight. I'm doing air quotes right now. He's had his fight in the cave, and he's like, damn. And he's had this vision. He's like, damn. And he's like, I've got to go save my friends. He turns up and he's fully whole hog. He's content on just like, I'd kill Vader right now. stab him in the face. Straight up, I'd just end him.
Yeah.
Not knowing that he's dad or anything like that. Just like, I'll end him if he has to save my friends. You know, and that's the thing about Luke. You know, he does what. Well, he doesn't do what has to be done, but he will go above and beyond to protect anyone if they are deserving of it. So his friends, obviously, he's like, yeah, we've got to protect him, but I think, you know, for some reason in 7, 8, and 9, which movies don't exist, he's just like, no, I gave up. Luke wouldn't do that. He's optimistic.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's this thing. He's just going for it. He doesn't properly know how to fight, but he holds his own with Vader for a long time. And the only thing that really comes down towards like him losing is the fact that Vader is stronger in the Force. That's pretty much it. Vader whittles him.
Yeah.
Like if Vader hadn't been,
He's playing with him. Yeah, he's playing with him the entire time.
If Vader hadn't done that, Luke could have defeated him. And then, of course, it was the whole point that, you know, for one, that movie, the entire movie is probably my favorite Star Wars movie overall. It's so good. Oh my god, especially Han Solo's jacket. Oh my god. But at the same time, it's the fact that, you know, even when he loses his hand, he's still not giving up. He's backing away, obviously, but he's still not giving up. He's trying to do his best. And then Vader's like, I'm your dad. Now, I don't care if people are like, oh yeah, no, Vader means dad in German or whatever. I don't care. I could have read a German dictionary and gone, oh, Vader, dad.
Yeah.
And I still wouldn't have gone, Darth Vader's his dad. Nobody in the universe.
Yeah, whatever.
If
Yeah.
a German walked into a cinema.
Oh, yeah,
and
they
went, oh, Vader means dad in my language. Nobody would have gone, Vader is Luke's father. And then, boom, bombshell. Vader's Luke's dad. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go sit in the corner and contemplate life for like 10 minutes because it was like it was the equivalent of like a thermonuclear mic drop.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the choreography not that good because it was the second movie. George had only just realized that. Well, he hadn't only just realized, but you know, he was in that space where he's like, "Shit, I've got to come up with all this backstory because it was only going to be episode 4."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh man, it made so much money. Let's make episode 5, and then you know, continue this story." But it is a good waypoint, like Jedi wise and fight wise, between Luke as a farm boy, Luke as a Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
Like it's not the perfect, okay, but it's like 99.9% almost like perfect. A middle ground. He's fighting with, you know, his anger, he's putting his all behind it, he's got no finesse in his fighting style, but at the same time he manages to keep Vader on the back foot, even, you know, defeats Vader a little bit sometimes, like smack him on the shoulder and kick him in the face.
Kick him down.
His own. Yeah. But it also shows just how much Luke doesn't know about the Force and fighting with a lightsaber, because he gets his ass handed to him in the end. But it's just a beautiful fight. Like it is an almost perfect like lightsaber fight, and it just had to be my number one for like the sheer effect it had on me growing up and the beauty behind the fight. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean that one just missed out on being on my list. My number one is from my favorite movie of all time, and my favorite Star Wars movie, obviously, Return of the Jedi, the lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader. I know this one didn't make your list, but it's just this whole sequence is my favorite moment in all Star Wars, period. And it's one of my favorite. I mean, the ending of this movie, the last like 30 minutes of you know what's going down on Endor, and then you know with Lando leading the run into the Death Star to blow it up, and then with the Emperor and Vader and Luke in the throne room. I just think you know it's synonymously known as the throne room scene. It's just there's something so powerful and so amazing about this lightsaber fight in particular, because Luke has accepted the fact that Vader is his father, and he's going into this knowing that there is still good in his father, because Luke Skywalker, one of the most optimistic characters ever, you know, he would never ever want to kill his nephew if he sees just a little bit of dark in him, right? But apparently he does. But he this bit, you know, this villain who we've been presented for 2 whole movies just committing atrocious acts against humanity, you know, just blowing up planets, killing anybody who gets in his path or who messes up or makes a mistake. He's just so powerful and just such an incredible villain. And yet, Luke Skywalker, who accepting that this is his father, sees good in him and thinks that he can turn him to the back to the light side. He thinks he can do it. Vader says it's too late for me, my son. He's going to take him to the Emperor. He will be your new master now. And just, when Luke's just kind of looking out and the Emperor is just sitting there completely toying with him. Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor, just completely incredible job. I mean, he's just amazing. The fact that he's been there the whole entire franchise, the whole saga as the Emperor, just amazing. But this being his first iteration as the Emperor, and just, I mean, he does such a good job just being a complete vicious, heartless villain, toying with Luke, trying to get him to turn to the dark side, trying to get him. He wants him to kill Vader to become his new apprentice, and then Vader, and then when Luke grabs the lightsaber and Vader, defending his master, and then just the powerful lightsaber fight between the two of them. Like you said, or like what both of us have said earlier, it's much more choreographed than the first two, but obviously not as choreographed as the prequels. But this is another one kind of like the Duel of Fates. It's kind of like a perfect mix between old school and new school. Duel of the Fates is a mix, but a little bit more on the new school side, and then Return of the Jedi is a mix, but a little bit more on the old school side. And it's just pure emotion, lightsaber clashes between the two of them in this fight. And Luke, becomes overcome with hatred after he, keeps saying that he doesn't want to fight him, and he's hiding. And then when Vader brings up, sister, talking about Leia, maybe she could turn, and then just straight up attacking, and then him just running out and attacking Vader and completely besting him, and then the music changes and he just slashing at his lightsaber and just using pure anger and his pure hatred, and then Vader goes over. I still never understood to this day why Vader just casually leans down on that little bar, but whatever. And Luke just slashes and then slices his hand off, and then just more incredible foreshadowing that I think makes this scene so much better, kind of like the Dagobah vision, is when he cuts off his hand and one, he notices that his father really is just like him with the with the mechanical hand, and also machine now the man, and also he notices that I'm becoming my father because that's what he did to me, and I just did the same thing to him. And that's when he just completely gives up, and he says, I'm done. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. And then right before it cuts away back to Endor, and Palpatine just goes, "So be it, Jedi." And just so amazing. And then him getting zapped with the light, obviously, and then Vader, Anakin coming back to the light side, fulfilling the prophecy, and really truly being the Return of the Jedi, like the movie was named for. Coming back to the light side. And I mean, there's really nothing else I can say about this lightsaber fight. It's my personal favorite. It's so nostalgic for me, being for my favorite movie. And like I said, the last sequence in this movie, the last act, whatever, the last 45-30 minutes is just my favorite single piece of a movie in all of movie history. And so that's my number one. And all right, so Captain, you want to just each run through our list one more time before we wrap up?
Before we wrap up as well,
Okay.
if you've actually managed to make it this far into the video, go and actually look how the original lightsabers, the effects were done.
Oh yeah, with that little stick that they used to break all the time.
No, I mean, after in post production when.
Oh yeah.
It was a guy in a room with a crayon. That's how the lightsabers were done. Not a legit crayon, but they were all hand stuff, which is why they're funky. But seriously, go back and actually people need to go back and look how lightsabers came into being, because they're absolutely awesome. Especially some of the original concept art from way back when by the artist whose name I cannot remember. Back when Vader was.
Ralph McQuarrie.
Well, Ralph McQuarrie.
Yeah.
He did some really good concept and art for that.
And they used his art for in episode 9 for Palpatine and for Palpatine's throne on Exegol. That was the original throne room art.
They used the design for Vader in Rebels.
Oh yeah, right.
And more of they had more of the pointy lightsabers.
Yeah.
But yeah, seriously, people need to go back and look at how. Well, mainly how the Star Wars effects were done, because they are great. But the lightsabers themselves were, it was crazy. And to say that the sound effect of a lightsaber is a steel cable Um, just it was absolutely crazy anime. But yeah, definitely go back and watch it. But to bring this thing to the end, my list, of course, was number 5, Anakin versus Obi-Wan in Episode 3. Number 4 was all the old Republic cutscenes. Number 3 was Obi-Wan versus Maul in Rebels. Number 2 was Duel of Fates, and number 1, of course, was Vader versus Luke.
All right. So well, actually, before I wrap up my top five, Leo, who hasn't been able to record with us the last couple weeks, he wanted to give his top five. He's not able to record with us, so when he's going through and editing this, right now I'm gonna timestamp it for him. So right when I'm done speaking right now, you guys will hear his top five that he has pre-recorded, and then you'll come right back and talk about mine.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Long time no see. I've been dealing with some stomach issues, but I'm here today giving you my top 5 Star Wars lightsaber battles or fights or duels, wherever you want to go with that wordage, I guess. In no particular order. I just have 5. I don't want to, rank them above the other. I like all of the fights. Kind of hard to choose one, but these are my 5. My 5 favorite lightsaber fights in the Star Wars franchise. Now, I'm more of a, I guess you could say, basic Star Wars fan. I stick to the prequels and the original trilogy, so that's where the majority of my decisions are going to come from. First off, I want to go off with the fight that Obi-Wan had and Qui-Gon against Darth Maul in Episode 1, Phantom Menace. I think it was a great fight. Near the end, obviously, we have Maul killing Qui-Gon, which ripped my boy, Liam Neeson. Really sad to see him go down. The master and student, you think he would win against Darth Maul. That's 2-on-1, but I guess Qui-Gon's age and the form he was using, I think, what was it, Form 4, Ataru or something, wasn't designed for, people who were, didn't have as much energy as a younger person would, so that's kind of what screwed over Qui-Gon, I believe. He died. Darth Maul hit it off with Obi-Wan, and really great choreography, too. And Obi-Wan, at first he was kind of losing, and then, he's hanging on for dear life, and, I just want to say, maybe it's the low ground. Maybe you need to get the low ground, guys. Maybe it's not all about the high ground. I'm just saying. But, yeah, that fight was, I like that fight. I like that fight a lot. Obviously, also Darth Maul makes that fight because such a different looking character, a Sith. We had Darth Vader before, and we had Darth Sidious, or Sneedious, wherever you want to go with that. But, this guy has horns coming out of his face. He's got these weird red markings, really weird stuff. Looks like a demon out of hell, right? And I think that's one of the good fights right there. Another one I like to do, I guess my number 2 fight would be Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Count Dooku. Now, this fight's interesting because we see Anakin here doing the dual lightsaber form, right, where he has 2 lightsabers, and I think that's the only time we ever see him use 2 lightsabers in combat. Why didn't he use more two saber wielded combat form in the future? This is practically why Count Dooku ends up toying with him. This dude is like a dueling master, right? He's pretty good at it. He's super duper good. And Anakin, he is the chosen one, but he's not there yet. When it comes to full on power, he's not like Episode 3 Anakin yet. But Anakin puts up a good fight. Obi-Wan tried and failed, right? I think he's still. Obi-Wan's still, trying to go through the phases of being a master, so to say, since originally we all know Qui-Gon was supposed to be the trainer to, or master, the master trains the Padawan, so technically I'm right, for Anakin Skywalker, right, but, Darth Maul killed him, and, now Obi-Wan's stuck with it, and I think Obi-Wan might have benefited from more guidance from Qui-Gon if he was still around, and I think him getting killed off earlier was a big blow to them, but yeah, that fight was it was good. It was good. I liked seeing it. Also because Anakin loses his hand, right? So hey, you really know he's Luke Skywalker's daddy now because he doesn't have a hand. So yeah, that's a good one too. And I guess I want to see Yoda fighting Count Dooku too because man, Yoda, freaking little acrobat everywhere. You see him in the original trilogy. He's like a little old man. He can't walk. Kind of senile, right? But in this one, he's like woo woo, pow 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 pow. He's all over the place, and I think he's a very very acrobatic Jedi to say the least. So that's also a very, very interesting fight. Number 3. Let's go with number 3. The fight aboard the Death Star in episode 4 with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Now, this one is an interesting one because I think at the time when they were going for lightsaber combat in the Star Wars films, I think George Lucas's vision wasn't really what we had in the prequels, right? You know, the fancy choreography that I tend to like more, right? But it was a more simpler fighting style, kind of a kendo-ish, kendo type-ish, you know, type of deal, type of Japanese martial art with like wooden swords, I think. And I think it was an interesting fight. I mean, it wasn't, you know, the glamour that we have now with the newer movies and so forth, but it's definitely, you know, it's two old foes or frenemies, I guess. You know, Anakin, you know, he's an old man now, you know, and to be honest, Obi-Wan probably is in better health than Anakin after he got, you know, totally sizzled, right? So a lot of hatred brewing inside Anakin, you know, hey, this guy made me who I am today, and I hate him, and I want to kill him, and, you know, not really that much physicality to it, but still definitely a tense battle. You know, it's the first time we see you know, the sabers going out in the movie against another person, and Darth Vader, quote unquote, wins against Obi-Wan, which is, you know, debatable, right? And yeah, it was a good fight. Not definitely a highly choreographed fight, but definitely a pivotal fight. It's a fight that really changes a lot in the Star Wars universe, and it's a very important moment in Star Wars history. So where was I with that? Number 3, right? So I think we're at 4. Let's go with 4. I think number 4 would have to be when Luke and Darth Vader go at it on Cloud City. Now, this one, you know, Luke, I think, is a little gung-ho here. Like, oh my God, my friends are dying. And, you know, with good reason to be afraid of losing the ones he loves, right? The same mistakes his father made with Padme and his unborn children, Luke and Leia. So he goes away from Dagobah, and he goes to Cloud City. He finds Vader. You know, Vader, obviously, you know, he's a better duelist, hands down, and he's more in tune with the Force than Luke is at this point. You know, at this point, Luke is still, for all intents and purposes, a Jedi trainee, a Padawan maybe at best, you know, and he's not really going to win against Darth Vader, but it's still, he tries to win, and, you know, it shows his conviction to the cause, to the light side of the Forces, so to say, right? He's willing to risk his life for his friends. Well, when what's the expression? Push comes to shove, or tough something, whatever it means. But yeah, that one was a good fight. You know, father and son fighting at it, and well, that's where you find out, like, hey, Luke, I'm your daddy, and well, no happens, right? One of the biggest Star Wars pivotal memes and moments in the lore, right? So yeah, that one was a great addition to the lightsaber fight list. I think I was on 2. Was it on 4? I think I'm on 5 now. I think if I get this wrong, I'm sorry, guys. But number 5 of my favorite lightsaber battles has to be Obi-Wan versus Anakin Skywalker, or at this point Darth Vader, in Episode 3 at the very end of the movie, you know, on Mustafar. The very, very last fight, the very, very last, you know, big event, you know, when Order 66 is going down. Such an intense fight. The choreography, I've never seen anything like it. The music in the background, it's just so awesome to me. Only a Sith deals in absolute, you know, lines like that. You know, and, you know, Master going against his, you know, former Padawan. These guys are practically like family, you know, brothers kind of. And, well, you know, even Obi-Wan says that you're like a brother to me, Anakin. And, well, you know, they have to go at it, and like, it just shows the brute force that Anakin has. Also, you know, he's at the top of his game right now. He is in tune with the dark side. He is one of the most powerful Jedi in the Jedi Order, if not the most powerful. And Obi-Wan, with his skills, with his Jedi form, I think form 3 or 2 of Ataru, I'm not sure, but I think the main reason why Obi-Wan held out was because he was so masterful of his defensive style that even if the OG rusher, Anakin Skywalker, kept coming at him with full force, he was still able to hold him off. And, you know, the high ground is there for a reason, right? Obi-Wan, a master of the high ground and the low ground. He ended up cutting him in half, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a really, really big pivotal moment. A really big pivotal moment, excuse me, in the Star Wars lore and franchise. It's really a huge turning point in the whole thing. That's what leads us into the original trilogy, and it shows us where Anakin went through, where Anakin was before and what he became after. A creature full of hatred and remorse of what could have been, and he decides to throw away Anakin Skywalker and adopt a new identity as Darth Vader, a Sith Lord. And yeah, guys, that's my top five lightsaber battles in the in the Star Wars series. Haven't heard the other guys' choices yet, but I'm sure they are really good choices. And let me know what you guys think about your favorite lightsaber battles in the comment section down below. As always, guys, take it easy, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully I can come back soon. I'm on a lot of treatment right now, but yeah, hopefully it works out. I'll see you guys later. Take it easy, everybody.
All right, so there was Leo's top 5 lightsaber battles, and so now we're just going to wrap up by me repeating mine. The ones that I have that just missed were Ahsoka versus Maul in the Clone Wars and Clone Wars Season 7, Kylo versus Rey in Episode 9 on the Death Star, and Luke versus Vader in Episode 5 in Bespin. And then so 5 through 1, I have Ventress versus Anakin in the original The Clone Wars 2D animated TV series back from 2003. And then my number 4, I have Luke versus Vader, Episode 5, the Dagobah vision scene. Number 3, I have Anakin versus Obi-Wan in Episode 3. Number 2 is Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul in Episode 1, the iconic Duel of the Fates. And number 1 is Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi. All right, so there is all of our top 5 favorite lightsaber battles. Like we've said a couple times, it's our personal favorites, what personally connects with us, what's nostalgic for us. It's not what we think is the best, because then we'd have to come to a common consensus and rank them for you guys. But so this is just our top 5 personal favorites. If you like this personal favorite content, be sure to check out the episode we did 2 weeks ago. Last week for episode 15, we covered all of the different Star Wars stuff that's going to be happening on Disney Plus through the end of this year and for the next couple years moving forward. And then in episode 14, the one right before last week, we covered our personal top favorite Star Wars characters. So that was a fun one. And then back on episode 2 of the podcast a couple months ago, back in January, I believe, we did a night long podcast where we ranked all of our Star Wars movies, our personal list of every single one, and where we have them in our hearts. And if you like this type of personal content, be sure to go check those ones out. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Toodles.